Kentucky isn't just bluegrass and bourbon, it's a graveyard of restless souls still walking among the living. From the blood-soaked hills of Perryville to the haunted halls of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, every corner of this state hides a story that refuses to die. Tonight, we're opening the doors to 15 of Kentucky's most haunted places where history breathes. Shadows whisper, and the past never sleeps. Our Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Louisville. They say the walls of Waverly Hills still breathe at night. Once a grand symbol of hope for tuberculosis patients, it now stands as a hollow monument to pain. The wind whistling through its broken windows sounds almost human, like whispers trapped between worlds. Visitors who dare to enter describe a heavy feeling, as if unseen eyes follow every step down those endless, echoing corridors. The air grows colder the deeper you go, and sometimes the faint metallic scent of blood lingers where no one has walked for decades. Rumors began long before the building was abandoned. Nurses who vanished without a trace. Patients whose screams were silenced behind sealed doors. They say room 502 is cursed. A nurse found hanging from the rafters. Her eyes open wide as if she'd seen something unspeakable. Since then, shadows move in that room, even when no light shines. Flashlights flicker, and faint footsteps approach, only to stop right behind you. Some hear whispers calling their names. Others catch glimpses of white figures gliding through the stairwell before dissolving into mist. Ghost hunters come armed with recorders and bravado, but few last long. Machines malfunction, voices appear in static, and unseen hands brush against their skin. The death tunnel, once used to transport corpses discreetly down the hill, hums with the restless energy of thousands who never left. The deeper you descend, the louder the air seems to pulse like the heartbeat of something that remembers suffering. And yet, every year, new seekers return to Waverly Hills, drawn by the same forbidden curiosity. Maybe they want proof of life after death, or maybe the place itself calls to them, testing their courage. So if you ever find yourself standing before those towering ruins under a moonlit sky, ask yourself, do you believe in ghosts? Or will you wait for one to answer you? 2. Bobby Mackey's music world wilder. At first glance, Bobby Mackey's music world looks like any small-town honky-tonk, a neon glow, laughter spilling from the bar, and the hum of country music filling the air. But beneath its floorboards lies something older, darker, and far less forgiving. Locals whisper that the building was once a slaughterhouse, and its basement a drainage pit became what they now call the gateway to hell. Some say that pit still reeks faintly of blood. Though it's been dry for decades, the stories began with a woman named Pearl Bryan, whose body was found nearby in 1896, her head missing. Her killers were said to have disposed of it in the pit below this very building. Ever since, her restless spirit has been tied to the place, her perfume occasionally drifting through the air just before the jukebox powers on by itself. Bartenders swear the music changes to a waltz no one remembers selecting, and a woman's soft sobs echo from the empty dance floor. Paranormal investigators call it one of America's most haunted nightclubs. Cameras fail, batteries drain, and growls vibrate through the basement walls. One former caretaker claimed he saw a shadow crawl across the ceiling, whispering his name in a guttural tone that no human throat could make. The stairway to the basement, once sealed off, still draws those foolish enough to test the legend. They say if you stand at the bottom and call into the darkness, something always answers. To outsiders, Bobby Mackey's is just a bar. But to those who've heard the cries from beneath the stage, it's a place where the line between music and madness blurs. So next time you drive through Wilder, Kentucky, and see that flickering neon sign, ask yourself, would you dare go inside when the band stops playing and the whispers begin? Say to Old Talbot Tavern, Bardstown. In the heart of Bardstown, where bourbon and brick streets tell stories older than the town itself, stands the Old Talbot Tavern, a place where history refuses to die quietly. Built in 1779, it has served travelers, soldiers, and outlaws alike. But some of those guests never checked out. Beneath the warm amber glow of the lanterns, there's a chill that creeps up your spine. A reminder that this inn is more than just an antique. It's a threshold between centuries, and maybe between worlds. Patrons claim to have seen shadowy figures gliding through the upstairs hallway, footsteps echoing long after midnight. Room 308 is infamous. Guests awake to the sound of boots pacing beside their beds, as if someone invisible is keeping watch. The scent of pipe smoke fills the air even when no one is smoking. But perhaps the most haunting of all is the legend of Jesse James. They say the notorious outlaw once stayed here, and his restless spirit still lingers. On the wall of an old guest room, bullet holes remain, said to be fired by James himself. Some nights, that same wall seems to pulse faintly, like it remembers the gunshot. Visitors describe hearing a man's laugh in the empty dining room or catching a glimpse of a rugged figure in a wide-brimmed hat, fading into the mirror's reflection. Lights flicker, doors creak open on their own, and an old piano downstairs sometimes plays two notes, slow, deliberate, and cold. The Old Talbot Tavern wears its ghosts with pride, each room a chapter of Kentucky's haunted history. But if you ever spend the night there, don't ignore the knock at your door around 3A. It might be a lost traveler looking for shelter, or it might be Jesse James himself, returning to finish a drink he started more than a century ago. 4. Cave Hill Cemetery, Louisville. By day, Cave Hill Cemetery is a place of beauty, rolling green hills, marble angels, and quiet reflection beneath towering oaks. But when night falls, that peace fades into something else entirely. The gates, cast in iron and shadow, seem to guard not the living, but the restless. Locals say that when the last light dips below the horizon, Cave Hill awakens, the still air thickens, and the dead begin to whisper. Founded in the 1800s, this vast cemetery holds more than 130,000 souls, from Civil War soldiers to the victims of forgotten epidemics. Many visitors claim that spirits wander the grounds, searching for names long erased from memory. A mist often clings to the tombstones near the old lake, and within it, Pale figures flicker in and out of sight. Security guards have reported cold hands brushing their shoulders and hearing children's laughter echoing from empty pathways. One even swore he saw a Union soldier standing by the gates, only for the figure to dissolve as he approached. There's a particular legend about the Seelbach family mausoleum. A heavy marble door that sometimes stands slightly ajar by morning, though no living soul has the key. On stormy nights, a soft humming can be heard from inside, a melody without words. Some say it's a mother singing to her child buried there. Others think it's something older, something that never rested at all. Even skeptics admit that Cave Hill carries an energy unlike any other place in Louisville. So if you ever find yourself wandering those paths after dark, and you feel the faint breath of wind on your neck, don't turn around too quickly. Because here, among the graves, not every whisper comes from the wind, and not every shadow belongs to you. Cheer, Perryville Battlefield, Perryville. The hills of Perryville look peaceful now. Green fields swaying under the Kentucky sun. But in October of 1862, they ran red with blood. This was the site of one of the fiercest battles of the Civil War, where more than 7,000 soldiers were killed or wounded in a single day. Locals say the land remembers. On quiet nights, when the fog rolls low, the past seems to breathe again. Farmers nearby speak of hearing drums in the distance, steady and solemn, as if the armies still march across the ridges. Travelers see lanterns floating through the mist, carried by figures in torn gray and blue uniforms. Some have followed those lights only to find themselves standing in an empty field, surrounded by silence. Even the animals act strange here. Horses refuse to cross certain spots, and dogs howl at shadows no one else can see. Park rangers tell of a particular ridge where the temperature drops suddenly, the air thick with the metallic scent of gunpowder. Visitors report hearing cries for water, the same desperate pleas once shouted by dying men scattered across these slopes. One ranger, locking up at dusk, swore he saw 2 soldiers facing each other in the field, one raising a rifle, the other clutching his chest, before they both vanished like smoke in the wind. Perryville Battlefield is more than a memorial, it's a wound that never healed. Beneath the calm earth lie thousands who never went home, and perhaps never found peace. So if you stand there at sunset and the air turns heavy, listen closely. The war may have ended over a century ago, but here, the dead still fight for remembrance. Or Octagon Hall, Franklin. The Octagon Hall rises strangely from the Kentucky countryside, its 8-sided walls casting eerie angles in the moonlight. Built before the Civil War, it has stood witness to both refuge and ruin, its history soaked in blood, secrets, and sorrow. Locals call it the house that watches you, because no matter where you stand, you feel its eyes on your back. During the war, Confederate soldiers hid within these walls, many dying from wounds and disease. It's said their spirits never left. Visitors often hear muffled cries for help, the clatter of boots on wooden floors, or doors slamming in rooms long empty. In the dim glow of the upper hallway, some have seen a soldier kneeling, clutching his chest, fading away before their eyes. But the most unsettling ghost isn't a soldier, it's a little girl. Her name, they say, was Mary Elizabeth, a child who perished in a fire within the hall. Guests have reported hearing soft humming, a child's laughter echoing through the stairwell, and the faint sound of a ball bouncing though no one is there. Cameras malfunction when her presence is near, and cold spots linger where she's been seen. Some claim she tugs gently at sleeves, as if asking to play. Even seasoned ghost hunters leave shaken. The air in Octagon Hall feels charged like the building itself remembers. Whispers drift from its brick walls, pleading or warning, it's never clear which. So if you ever find yourself standing in that creaking hall at night, and a small hand brushes against yours in the dark, ask yourself, is it the wind, or is Mary Elizabeth still waiting for someone to answer her call? Benham Schoolhouse Inn, Cumberland. Once a proud school nestled in the Appalachian Hills, the Benham Schoolhouse Inn now stands as a strange blend of history and haunting. Built in the 1920s to educate the children of coal miners, it later transformed into a hotel, but some say the echoes of the past refused to leave when the classrooms emptied. At night, when the halls are quiet, you can still hear the faint shuffle of shoes on tile floors and the soft murmur of children reciting lessons that ended nearly a century ago. Guests often wake to the sound of giggling just outside their doors, followed by the patter of small feet running down the corridor, though the security cameras show nothing. One woman swore she saw a little boy standing at the end of the hallway, holding a worn-out book, his face pale and eyes hollow. When she blinked, he was gone. Others claim to hear the old school bell ringing at midnight, its rusted clapper unmoving in the tower. Staff members tell of a janitor who once worked late into the night and quit the next morning, shaken and pale. He said he saw a classroom light flicker on by itself. When he stepped inside, the chalkboard had fresh writing. "Be quiet. Class is still in session." The words faded as he watched, like breath on glass. Locals believe the energy of the children and teachers who once filled those rooms remains, looping endlessly through the years. By day, it's an inviting inn with laughter and warmth. But when darkness falls, the building reverts to what it remembers best, a school full of voices, waiting for morning that never comes. And if you ever hear the bell toll while you're alone, you might want to leave before attendance is taken again. Eight, Whitehall, Richmond. Whitehall stands proudly among the rolling fields of Richmond, a gleaming antebellum mansion that once echoed with music, debate, and ambition. Built in 1798, it was the home of Cassius Marcellus Clay, a fiery abolitionist and politician known as the Lion of Whitehall. But behind the elegance and intellect that defined his legacy lies an undercurrent of tragedy that never truly left the house. Visitors say the mansion still hums with the energy of the people who lived and died within its walls, restless, unseen, and waiting to be acknowledged. Tour guides tell of the piano that plays faintly in the dead of night, a tune that ends abruptly when someone enters the room. Others report seeing the faint silhouette of a man standing by the library window, staring out toward the fields as if watching for someone who never returned. On stormy nights, the scent of cigar smoke drifts through the empty halls, Clay's favorite indulgence, though no flame burns anywhere nearby. There is one room, however, that seems colder than the rest. Guests who step inside describe an unshakable feeling of being watched. Mirrors cloud over, and sometimes a reflection lingers a second too long after you've moved away. One historian claimed she heard a woman's voice whisper, "He's still here," just before her camera shut off by itself. Whitehall has been restored beautifully, but no amount of polish can erase what time remembers. The walls themselves seem alive, breathing softly with the memories of laughter, argument, and loss. And when the last visitor leaves and the doors lock for the night, the mansion grows silent again until, somewhere deep inside, a single piano key strikes in the dark, reminding you that Whitehall is never truly empty. Nine, Sauerkraut Cave, Louisville. Beneath the serene fields of E.P., Tom Sawyer State Park lies a place so strange, few dare to enter twice. Sauerkraut Cave. Its name, almost playful, hides a history that chills the blood, long before it became part of the park. This cave sat beneath the Lakeland Asylum for the Insane. Its tunnels once stored barrels of fermented cabbage. But rumor has it, they also concealed something far more sinister. Patients from the asylum were said to be dragged down here for punishment, or worse, for experiments no one was meant to see. Locals still whisper about muffled screams echoing through the limestone halls and the sound of chains clinking in total darkness. Some claim the asylum used the cave to hide the dead, those who never survived their treatments. And though the asylum was demolished decades ago, the cave remains, a silent witness to everything buried above it. Those who venture inside tell of disembodied voices calling their names, the air heavy with the smell of decay, and something sour like the ghost of the sauerkraut that once filled the tunnels. Flashlights flicker, batteries drain, and sudden whispers crawl out from the pitch-black corners. A few explorers say they've seen handprints appear on the walls, slick with condensation as if something unseen is pressing to get out. Even in daylight, the cave feels wrong. Birds won't nest near the entrance, and cell signals vanish without explanation. Some paranormal investigators insist the energy there is oppressive, as though the earth itself has absorbed centuries of torment. So if you ever find yourself standing before the gaping mouth of Sauerkraut Cave, remember it's not the darkness you should fear. It's what remembers you after you leave. 10. Jailer's Inn, Bardstown. In the heart of Bardstown's quaint downtown stands a place that once held screams instead of laughter. The Jailer's Inn, what now serves as a charming bed and breakfast, was, for nearly 2 centuries, a working jail. From 1797 to 1987, it housed murderers, drifters, and broken souls who never saw the sun again. Its thick limestone walls have absorbed every cry, every confession, every dying breath, and at night, they give them back. Guests speak of waking to the sound of rattling keys and heavy footsteps pacing outside their locked doors. Some report the faint jingle of chains dragging across the floor, followed by a deep sigh that chills the air. Room 3 is infamous. Visitors describe a shadowy figure standing in the corner, watching as they sleep. The air smells faintly of iron like rust or blood. One story stands out among them all, the spirit of a former jailer who took his own life within these walls. They say he still makes his nightly rounds, checking cells that no longer exist. In the courtyard, cold spots linger where gallows once stood, and people claim to hear a man whisper, "Justice never rests." Cameras often fail there, and guests who stay in the old cell room sometimes find their belongings moved, as if inspected. By day, the jailer's inn looks almost peaceful. Flowers blooming against the old stone facade, tourists laughing over breakfast. But when the sun dips behind Bardstown's rooftops, the inn changes. The walls breathe again. The past returns. And if you're unlucky enough to hear a cell door slam in the middle of the night, don't bother looking for the source. Some doors here haven't been opened for over 100 years, and some prisoners never left. And Rose Opera House, Cynthiana. On Main Street in the quiet town of Cynthiana stands a building that still dreams of applause. The Rose Opera House, built in 1871, once filled with music, laughter, and the thunder of ovations, now hums with something colder, a sorrow that clings to its red velvet seats and refuses to fade. The stage remains. The curtains still draw. But sometimes, it's the dead who perform. Locals say that after the lights go out, the theater awakens. Ushers have heard footsteps on the balcony when no one's there, and the faint rustle of a dress moving across the aisles. The most famous presence is known simply as the Lady in White, a spectral figure who appears near the stage, her face pale, eyes distant, forever waiting for her cue. Actors rehearsing late into the night often feel her watching from the wings, or smell her perfume drifting through the empty air. But she's not alone. 2 children are said to haunt the upper rows, their laughter echoing faintly between the seats. Some say they play tag. Others swear they tug at curtains and hum old show tunes. A few unlucky visitors have even seen a tall shadow pacing the backstage corridor, its movements jerky, its shape human only in outline. Paranormal investigators have recorded whispers saying, "Encore," or "It's not over." Lights flicker, microphones crackle with unseen voices, and temperature drops sweep through the theater mid-performance. The Rose Opera House, it seems, can't tell where the past ends and the present begins. So if you ever take a seat beneath that ornate ceiling and feel a cold breath against your neck, don't turn around. The show, for some, has never truly ended. Shaker Village of Pleasant Hill, Harrodsburg. Peaceful and picturesque by day, the Shaker Village of Pleasant Hill hides a silence that feels almost too perfect. This 19th century settlement, once home to a thriving Shaker community, now stands preserved as a living museum, but some say the villagers never really left. At dusk, when the sun dips behind the limestone buildings, a chill settles over the fields, and that perfect calm begins to tremble. Visitors describe hearing rhythmic footsteps along the gravel paths, measured orderly, as if a procession of Shakers still marches to evening prayer. Doors open slowly on their own, and soft hymns hum through the meeting house, sung by voices no living choir could claim. Candles flicker without a breeze, and guests who stay overnight at the inn have awoken to the sound of chairs scraping gently across the floor above them when no one else is there. Staff tell of one particular spirit, a woman in a simple gray dress, who appears near the west lot dwelling. She moves quietly, her head bowed in devotion, before vanishing into the orchard. One guide once followed her shadow and found fresh footprints pressed into the dew, leading nowhere. Paranormal investigators have caught faint whispers saying, "Do not disturb the work," and instruments that react wildly near the stone walls, as if the energy of devotion still burns there. The Shakers believed in simplicity, purity, and eternal life. Perhaps that last belief kept them here. When you walk through Pleasant Hill at night, with moonlight silvering the fields, the line between this world and the next grows thin. Listen closely, you might hear the echo of a hymn carried on the wind. But be careful. Some visitors say that once you hear it, the voices start to follow you home. Stepstone Church, Immaculate Conception Church, Butler. Hidden deep among the rural backroads near Butler stands Stepstone Church, its white steeple leaning like an exhausted sentinel over the forgotten dead. Officially called the Immaculate Conception Church, it was built in the 1860s and long abandoned after tragedy struck. Now, the crumbling stone and shattered windows are silent by day, but at night, locals swear they hear the echo of something unholy. Legend tells of 4 young girls who were murdered here over a century ago, their bodies desecrated, their names lost to time. The church was set ablaze, yet somehow the steeple endured, blackened but unbroken. Since then, strange things have never ceased. Passers-by see candlelight flickering through the broken glass, as if a service were still underway. Inside, the pews creak on their own, and faint giggles drift from the choir loft, quickly twisting into screams. Ghost hunters have captured recordings of whispering prayers in Latin, though no one inside was speaking. Others claim to have seen crucifixes swing violently, and cold hands press against their backs, urging them toward the altar. The air grows heavy, and the smell of burnt wood lingers even when the ground outside is damp from rain. One visitor described hearing a woman's voice say, "They never left." Moments before the church's front door slammed shut by itself. No one knows if the haunting comes from vengeance, grief, or something far darker, but locals avoid the site after sunset. They say the dead there aren't merely restless, they're angry. So if you ever stand before Stepstone Church beneath a blood-red moon and see light moving within its ruinous walls, do not go closer, because in that place, faith has long since fallen silent. But something else still answers the prayers. Or 14, Van Meter Hall Bowling Green. At Western Kentucky University, Van Meter Hall stands like a grand sentinel above the campus, its columns noble, its facade timeless. But beneath that elegance lies one of the university's oldest secrets. Built in 1911, the hall was meant for music, lectures, and celebration. Yet the students who linger there after dark say the building has a different kind of performance once the lights go out. It began with tragedy during construction, a worker who fell from the scaffolding and died on the unfinished stage. Ever since, strange things have plagued the hall. Late at night, piano keys strike on their own, slow and deliberate. The sound echoes down empty corridors until it fades into silence, only to start again from somewhere else. Some say it's the spirit of the worker, still trapped in the building he never finished. Others believe something older inhabits the stage, something that feeds on applause he will never hear again. Custodians have heard the heavy slam of backstage doors and footsteps pacing across the balcony when the hall is empty. In classrooms, lights flicker as if timed with invisible movement. More than one professor has claimed to see a shadow cross the stage during lectures, long after the curtains were drawn. One student reported seeing a faint figure standing at the podium, head bowed, hands trembling before vanishing in a flash of white light. Van Meter Hall's ghosts are not violent, but they are persistent. Every autumn, as new students arrive, the stories begin again, the cold breath on the back of the neck, the echo of applause in an empty theater, the faint hum of an unseen choir. And when the campus sleeps, Van Meter awakens. So if you ever walk by and hear someone rehearsing long after midnight, remember, in this hall, not all performers have left the stage. Buffalo Trace Distillery, Frankfort. The Buffalo Trace Distillery, nestled along the Kentucky River in Frankfort, is one of America's oldest bourbon distilleries and one of its most haunted. The scent of oak and whiskey still fills the air, but beneath that sweetness lies something bitter, something ancient. The workers call it Nendet, the spirit before the spirits, a presence that lingers among the aging barrels, watching, waiting, never seen yet always felt. Built in the late 1700s, the distillery has witnessed fire, floods, and death. During Prohibition, secret operations ran deep underground, and not everyone who entered those tunnels came out alive. Visitors describe cold drafts that seem to move against the wind, and voices whispering their names between the rows of bourbon casks. In Warehouse C, where the air is thick with aging whiskey workers, refuse to stay alone after dark. They claim to hear footsteps circling them slowly, followed by the metallic scrape of barrels shifting on their own. Tour guides tell of Elmer, a former night watchman who died on duty. Some still see his figure patrolling with a lantern, the light bobbing between the warehouses before vanishing into thin air. Others have reported hearing faint laughter near the bottling line when no one's working. One visitor even captured a photo of a man in old-fashioned overalls standing behind her, only to discover later that no employee had been present that day. The bourbon that ages here is said to draw its flavor from the land itself, rich, deep, and full of memory. Perhaps that's why the past refuses to leave. The walls have soaked up centuries of sweat, sorrow, and secrets. So when you lift a glass of Buffalo Trace and feel that faint chill crawl up your spine, don't ignore it. Because in Frankfort, the spirits that haunt this place aren't just in the bottles, they're still walking the warehouse floors, guarding what time could never distill. So now you've walked through Kentucky's most haunted corners, where the past still whispers and the dead never quite rest. But these 15 places are only the beginning. Hidden deeper in America's forgotten towns are stories even darker, stranger, and far more personal than you can imagine. If you're brave enough to keep going, hit subscribe and follow the trail into the next state's haunted secrets, because the shadows don't stop at Kentucky's border. The question is, will you